Also in the FA Cup, Chelsea beat Luton by 3-1, although the biggest story to come out of Chelsea would be the sacking of Frank Lampard earlier on today. So, Pinfold, was it a good decision by Chelsea to sack Frank Lampard?
Well, I think it's kind of in line with the way they've kind of operated for all these years. I mean, I think many people, when Frank first took the job, knew the nature of Chelsea. But we kind of had thought, given the nature of the player and the history of the club, that perhaps they'll be much more lenient with Frank. But turns out, no, of course. They've just been as harsh with him as they've been with any other manager. The results just purely haven't been good enough. I think during the first year, although most people were quite impressed with the position that Chelsea were able to get in the league table, given the transfer ban this season, with the money being spent and the transfers being brought in, it's just simply hasn't been good enough.
So you mean they got into the Champions League, so they were content with getting into the Champions League, right?
Well, I think most managers at Chelsea, they're actually expected to win something. Like if they don't, I feel like just for Chelsea, Champions League just isn't enough.
The question is, when Lampard came in, was he an improvement over Mauricio Sarri? No, he was not. No, he was not.
He'd just come off the back of winning the Europa League. They've done this a couple times, right? Conte, didn't he get a double when they let him go? And now with Sarri as well, it's just their standards. I get it. You know, they are a club that is very cutthroat, but with Lampard, one of their own.
Yeah, I felt like with the whole Lampard thing, and you can actually see this, I think, with some of the supporters believing that it was the wrong decision. I think the fans would have wanted Lampard to have been given more time, perhaps to the end of the season, in comparison to other managers. And I think perhaps just what he's done for the club over the years and his history of them kind of perhaps made him deserve that. I think, what he did with last season, with not just, you could say what you want about the position, but it kind of just made Chelsea a somewhat likable team for the first time I can remember. I mean, Chelsea were always known as a big spending club, a club that have been accused of just buying titles, where with the likes of Abraham and Mason Mount being given their breaks by Frank Lampard.
Seeing the youth prospects.
What did they do this summer? What did they do this summer? Spend 220 million pounds.
Yeah, they did, but he never really sidelined the youth players who
I think what Matt's trying to say is last season they really used their youth, and it was great because they were doing well, and it was a blend.
I disagree with this notion. That Chelsea are a club that bleed youth, that bring through youth, that have a good youth pedigree. They are the club in the Premier League that send out the most players on loan. Right? They send out the most players on loan.
They are not a club.
Their transfer embargo is their juggling of the youth players and the loans, and we all know.
But that's my point.
They're a club that are based on making a profit, right?
But that's not. That's not. I mean, it made Chelsea a like club.
AC Milan and things like that. I do agree slightly with what Henry's saying.
I think that it's fair to say that because of everything that happened when he first joined the club, and because of the embargo, that I would say there was a lot more patience with him. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but I personally was never convinced by Lampard. And so I think that purely because he was able to survive and get into the Champions League without being able to sign anyone, and given Chelsea's history of signing players, everyone was like, okay, when he can sign players, he's going to be amazing. But he just hasn't been. So
I think when you look, and he got the same results at Derby, fourth, that he did with Chelsea last season, fourth. So it's like, that is his level. And I think, they've brought in these players.
Don't make me laugh. Charlie, you say that, and I agree with you 100%, mate. Like, his level is championship. And I don't mean to sound like I'm bashing Chelsea or I'm bashing Lampard for the sake of it. But I think he's a young manager. He literally just retired. He basically walked straight into a manager's job at Chelsea. And Derby, sorry. And yeah, he achieved quite well with that Derby squad, considering Derby are flirting with relegation this year, and that was only 2 years ago. I think what he did with that Derby squad was good. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy. What happened with Leeds, the Leeds fiasco with the Bielsa Spygate, and there's a lot. And then, like you said, I think last season, I think he overachieved personally because they're on the back end of that transfer embargo. They couldn't sign anyone. All he could really do was bleed through youth. And I think the players he did bring through, fantastic. Mason Mount, I think he's a brilliant player. Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think he's a brilliant player. Right? What worries me the most now is you've got a Tuchel coming in. He couldn't get the best out of Neymar, Di Maria, and Mbappe at PSG.
It's true.
What makes Chelsea fans think he's going to get the best out of Havertz and Werner?